Hello and welcome everybody. And this is the 5th episode of the Inclusive Circus Network gathering. And unfortunately, is a very sad news. This is the last part of and the final part of the series we had this time in 2025. And I'm Veronika Gallyas from the Hungarian Juggling Association and representing the work of a big group, a nice network, whom I would like to also tell, who are in this partnership and network. Wash Atelier from Bruges in Belgium, Odskocznia Studio from Poland, Self APS, you will listen to them today, from Italy, Monociclo from Greece, and Cirque de Artistas de Barcelona. And maybe something important to say that just until yesterday, all these people, this beautiful group, we were together personally in Budapest. We had a weekend of functional juggling. We had time to play together, and we also had time, like one day of conference where we invited the Hungarian people who maybe just had their first day to see what inclusive juggling is. So that was really an amazing day with loads of success. And I think we could also represent that creativity and the strength of the network and of our friendship, which you can also follow during this 5 episode. Today's program is also organized by Craig Quat, who is our main collaborator and Hula Hoop Integral. And I'm really honored that Craig is working with us and teaching us and mentoring us all the time. And also, as a very important background, we have Erasmus Plus program, which is the educational program of the European Union, and they actually finance that we can be here every second week together. We can make the small YouTube films after this edited. So you can find on the YouTube channel of the Hungarian Juggling Association all of the episodes, and you can watch them again and again. Some practical information for today, that please stay muted during the frontal part, and then still you can use the chat box for putting any of your comment or any of your questions, which will be answered during the time. Yeah, this also going to be recorded, this episode as well. So you can also watch it back. If you don't want to be visible, you have the choice to have your camera switched off all the time. So thank you for being with us and enjoy the program of today. And now I would like to give the floor to our friend Craig Quat, who is leading the episode of today. Thank you, Craig. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Veronica. Hello, hello, hello. Sorry, my doorbell was just ringing, so I was like trying to figure that out. Welcome to the final episode. Yay! Community is the theme today. We have been building up throughout this 5-week series, focusing first on adaptation, application, and community being the last focus of the conversation. Each of these topics relates to sort of the development pathway that functional juggling ideas have taken. So I think this has been a really encapturing series, and I'm glad that it's been able to be recorded and published on YouTube. So everyone who's here, please share these recordings with your friends as well, so we can let more people know about the changes and transformations that are happening in circus practice. I'm going to start off by giving another one of my presentations. So first I have to share my screen. And this is just going to be a super quick overview. We do a lot of things. I do a lot of things, so it's hard to put it all into one presentation. So what I want to do is just go over some of the major points about how I focused on community development, what my community development strategies have been with functional juggling, and what challenges I faced in the process. And then we'll jump into a conversation with Tim Roberts, who's our guest from Ecole des Cirque de Quebec, and also the Self Project will be sharing some information about their program as well. So I began the process in 2010, and the first 4 years I mostly spent around the United States. And as soon as functional juggling began to emerge, I immediately recognized from the outset that it would require a cultural movement to be able to transform these ideas into a global practice. And for this reason, my focus was always on building sustainable community supports and network from the start. So very early on, I focused on grassroots. So meaning like I would make a lot of collaborations with different organizations. It wouldn't necessarily be clear whether I was the leader or they were the leader. And one of the organizations I worked with a lot was the American Youth Circus Organization, or now it's the American Circus Educators Organization. And I was able to learn a lot about umbrella, the impacts of working with networks, social networks, and in the combination with grassroots within this field of practice, that was allowing me to create rapid growth. So I figured out early on in the States that combining grassroots with umbrella organizations allowed me to spread information more rapidly and have this practice become a reality. So sort of the special sauce of circus for me is if you bring circus people together, circus grows. From 2015 to 2019 was my European development project, and I was scaling up the concept across Europe. I had a strong sense of what needed to be achieved. Like I had a pretty good idea of, I needed people to practice, I needed to develop production and create community and culture. But I encountered significant resistance in shifting centralized conversations towards topic of inclusions. I think the situation's getting a lot better. The conversations are becoming more open, but when I began the process, not everyone was excited. So recognizing the need for a more radical community-driven approach, I once again bridged the gap by strategically aligning grassroots, so working with a lot of local organizations locally, but then interconnecting those organizations internationally. Anywhere I could find people that was interested in the same idea, I would find ways to connect them to each other. And this partnership empowered a sustainable movement, uniting diverse voices to overcome barriers and foster genuine transformation. I managed to do training courses at that time in 18 countries, hundreds of collaborators. We weren't keeping a good database at that time, so it's hard for me to say. I know we did more than 30 formal training seminars across Europe and at least 300 facilitators. And just to point out here that a big part of my strength has come from sort of the Mediterranean and Eastern European alliance, where I find that the conversations about social circus are developing all across Europe, but I find in these places it's found more sort of an anchor within the culture. Um, Maybe it's because of higher needs or different perspectives. I'm not sure, but I have gotten a lot more support from the Mediterranean and Eastern Europe than I have from places you would expect, centralized places that you would expect. From 2019 to 2020, I am really serious when I say I want to make this a global movement. So I shifted my focus to Latin America, and building on the success and insights gained from my experiences in Europe, I set out to replicate the process across Latin America. And this is where I discovered an environment that was uniquely receptive to the ideas, to the ways that I was developing community and culture. I think actually what I realized there is when I was coming from the US and Europe, I thought I sort of invented these concepts myself. But when I got to South America, I found that there were many people already practicing these ways. So community building took place naturally and rapidly contributed to the growth of ideas. So here I didn't find any cultural barriers. I just shared with people and then they shared with other people. And the willingness to copy and imitate and duplicate is a lot more open. And that's what we need with this culture of practice. Whereas in Western cultures of circus practice, there's more focus on ownership. So I think there's less of a willingness uh, to copy without guilt, whereas in South America, that's not an issue. And I had no problem spreading ideas there. From 2020 to 2023, this was the virtual development. I don't know if anyone remembers, there was a pandemic. And throughout this period, we sustained our momentum by cultivating community and expanding networks through regular online gatherings and virtual training programs, such as the one that we're having right now. It's when we first started to experiment with this idea. And we hosted quite a few during the pandemic. These digital platforms enabled us to maintain meaningful connections, share knowledge, and foster growth despite physical barriers. So there's a lot of pros and cons that came out of this virtual period, right? In many ways, it helped me strengthen my international collaborations and alliances. I formed a lot of new partners during this period, which I was then able to go out and work with after the pandemic. And we also published the book of Functional Juggling, which was sponsored by in collaboration with Erasmus Plus and a lot of the partners from this presentation as well. And this, what you're seeing here is a map of the downloads of this book, which is interesting because I think what it really shows you is the places that people are having conversations about social circus, or more specifically, inclusive social circus. So you can see it's mostly concentrated around Europe, North America, and South America. There are some projects in, Asia and Africa, but it hasn't really taken root there yet, this practice. And then we have following as well in Australia and New Zealand. So we're using all the tools that we can, but there's nothing that replaces in-person, face-to-face. So there's still a few more places I need to go, like Brazil and Australia, to finish the job. But we've done a lot already. So after the pandemic from 2023 to 2024, I did the most intensive tour I've ever done in my life. And we did what did I say? By this point, the resistance that I countered the first time when I did a tour in Europe was gone. Like I didn't find it in this second tour. Like everywhere I went, people wanted to have this conversation about inclusive. Like more people knew what social circus was than the first time I was there. And in many ways, the conversation had become larger and strengthened, but also the impacts of the pandemic. We know a lot of schools that have closed down for that. So it's an interesting time to be traveling through circus. But in this last tour, I visited 24 countries in less than 2 years. We collaborated with hundreds of circus centers, 40 plus formal training seminars, and 400 plus facilitators. So if you add this all up, you can kind of see a pattern of how I'm developing. Like I understand that it has to be a combination of local and global if you really want to shift culture. And it might be a little bit, we might take it for granted in this group because our conversation, we're so used to having this conversation about inclusion, but that's not all of circus right now. And that's not everywhere that conversation is happening. So I've really taken the responsibility to try to get out into the world, meet these people face to face, play with them hands on, because when you feel how easy and fun juggling can be, then it becomes less important, how cool you think you are for doing it. And I've found that meeting people face to face, sharing with them that experience is critical. And that's why I think gatherings like this as well are critical. I observe that too, that when people from different places come together and meet face to face, many things come after that. And that's why we're trying to create these networking events. For the future, what I see happening is more network creation. I think I'm taking more and more of a backseat as being the primary microphone because the network has become so large and there's so many other leaders and people who have new and interesting ideas to contribute to the conversation. So I see my role becoming more of a network advisor and really helping to strengthen the global conversation. And I also see the emergence of more regional leaderships. You can see that in this whole series of presentations. Every single one of our guests is their own regional leader now, and they're beginning to self-organize. More crossover collaborations between circus and societal fields of practice, which is just a continuation of what's been happening. And I also predict a rise in significance of social practice over that of performance, because I feel if you play the numbers out far enough into the future, there's a limit to how many people in the world and how much of society can benefit purely from art and performance of circus versus how many people in the world and society can benefit from the use of circus as a social practice. The numbers are much greater if you use it as a social practice. So if we continue on this path, we should expect at some point in the future that the significance of social circus practice becomes much larger than that of performance. Which isn't that like performance is bad. We want to continue performance, but just trying to put in perspective how large our conversation has yet to become. For some news and some updates, I'm still advertising this. We're starting next week, an online 16-hour course. We don't have enough registration to run it yet. So if you were thinking about signing up, please consider doing that. I will be transitioning to more pre-recorded materials over the course of this year. So I'm not sure how many more live online courses I'll do, but you're always able to book me privately if anyone wants that sort of personal mentorship as well. And this was a quick presentation, but if you want to learn more about me and the journey of functional juggling, you can check out the Stage Link podcast that came out last month, or a month and a half ago now, where I talk about many more details of these types of concepts. So if you're interested to learn more, check out stagelink.com. And their podcast series, they have a lot of good, interesting people on there. So check out some other ones as well. There you go. Community development, episode 5. So that was a really quick overview of some of, you can see that we've done a lot. I've been really busy. I could have talked a lot more about that, but I want to jump into our interview. So I'm just going to keep rolling. I'm going to stop my screen share because I need to read something from my own screen right now. So give me a second as I introduce our guest of the day. So for those of you who don't know, today we have the honor of speaking with Tim Roberts, a foundational figure in the evolution of circus education and a champion of community-driven development within the field. As one of the founders of the European Federation of Professional Circus Schools, the former director of the National Centre for Circus Arts in London, and the current director of Ecole de Cirque de Quebec, Tim has played a pivotal role in shaping modern circus education, and he's seen a lot of it as well. So his work has not only influenced the training of elite performers, but has also contributed to the broader conversations on how circus can be used as a tool for transformation. In this episode, we'll dive deep into his perspectives on community development within circus. So many topics Tim can talk about, but we've invited him here to speak with us about community development and why it matters, how it shapes the future of the art form, and what role emerging movements like social circus and functional juggling play in redefining accessibility, education, and participation in circus arts. Tim has spent his career navigating the intersection between formal circus education and grassroots community initiatives, and today we'll hear his insights on why the growth of community networks is vital to the evolution of circus as an art form and cultural movement. Welcome to the show, Tim Roberts. Tim?
Thank you very much. Thank you, and welcome. Thank you, everybody. It's a privilege to be here meeting you.
Right. These introductions can be quite verbose. I know you've done a lot of things. I put it in quite dramatic terms, but I know you're like a really laid back type of guy in reality.
You can say I'm a bit of the Forrest Gump of circus world.
I think that's it's a good way to put it. So we're gonna jump right into the questions if you don't mind. Go right into it.
No problem.
If people want to learn more about your background, they can research it. You've done a lot. So to begin with, could you share from the beginning, if we could just sort of clarify, what does community development mean to you and how you've seen it impact the evolution of circus, or what its significance is within circus? So what does community development mean and why is it significant in circus?
Community development for me, regardless of what the community is, means that there is a group of people with a shared interest who work together to develop the roots of what's important for them within their shared interest and how they can share their common experiences to help others advance in developing the quality and the interest in this shared interest. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. It comes from the people. The community itself defines what's important for the community and then works together to advance on those axes that they consider important.
And then how do you see that being, how does that fit in as sort of one of the pillars of circus?
Okay. Well, for example, I'll use the European Federation of Circus Schools as an example.
Yeah.
Okay. first of all, there were just 3 places that had degree programs: London, Brussels, and Chalon.
And what year is this?
This is, I'm talking 1997, 1998. Okay, a century ago, practically. Okay, and so none of these institutions, they weren't institutions yet, maybe Chalon was, had a peer in their country with which they could share concerns or ideas with. Okay, the circus schools themselves were isolated islands in some country. Okay, and we got together basically as a support group because we had the same issues in regards to our institution. How do we deal with our validating institution, those that gave us the degrees? How do you work with a person that's checking you all the time? How do you find teachers for the disciplines you need to teach? How do you continue to develop the teachers that are working for you? How do you manage the security issues in your schools? What kind of processes do you put into place? Everything you need to do about managing a building or managing a curriculum or managing the specifics of human resources, all those things we needed to share ideas about and help, because we were all at different stages in our development and we could only learn from the experience of our peers. And
so shared knowledge, right? Finding a way to
share knowledge and sharing of good practice.
Right. And if you look at that 97, you said, I think 98, and then once that starts to come together, what do you see happen immediately after?
What you see happening is, okay, and what we found that was interesting as the organization grew, okay, at first we were a support group for the circus school directors, okay? And as more and more organizations joined the federation, we realized that it was important for us to reach into the different levels of employees within our organizations. Okay, so that meant that the next
so it started like as a circle, and then it bubbled out,
like an onion or tree rings. Okay, so at the beginning it was just the circus school directors who dealt with circus school director issues.
Gotcha.
But as we grew, the next layer of people we incorporated into our working groups or into reflections on how to best serve the members were the people that were responsible for running the educational program within your circus school. The course directors, or as we say in French, the directeur pédagogique. Okay, the pedagogical director. And then and we had programs for that. Then we started integrating more students, and that's where the circle development came. So we're starting to have experiences for students, which tied into the experiences for the educational directors. And then as we grew and different initiatives came up, to the one that we're doing recently, we finished about 18 months ago. It was called it was the Riggers Project, because all of a sudden as we grew communities within our schools, educational directors that knew other educational directors, circus school directors that knew other circus directors, teacher training programs where teachers started to have peers in other circus schools that they could refer to. The riggers in our schools also felt this loneliness of being the only person in their organization to be responsible for the safety and security. So our newest community within the FEDEC is all the riggers that work in all the schools. And they got together to talk about the issues that they had as riggers in a circus school. They started sharing information. They started creating films to help each other. They started we've proposed to Europe a second project for the riggers. But what happens is the riggers are responsible for their network of communication within the FEDEC. the same way that circus school directors are or educational directors are, even though we don't have specific programs for those other populations or those other people right now. Right now,
I think the concept of growth that you described is interesting because compared to our community of functional juggling, we sort of cast the net as broad as we could from the beginning, and we kind of move forward in this way. Whereas your description of like, and I can see there being benefits, pros and cons, where like, you can really strengthen your conversation first and have a clear understanding of what you want to do. And clearly something worked out well with that model for FedEc because it's been very successful.
Well, we're the only circus organization for now. I mean, we celebrated our 27th anniversary. It'll be 28 years this April.
I think it's hard for those of us who haven't been in the industry that long to understand like how isolating the culture was before we started to form these organizations. So the next or a lead on question from this topic, because you already introduced the FedEc, is what insights do you feel social circus programs can gain by observing FedEc organizations like FedEc and their organizational models? Because we're kind of imitating already and making play with it, because when I showed up in Europe, these models were already there for me. I just had to figure out how to adapt them for my purposes. But what do you feel we could take away from those types of institutions?
I think the importance of these kind of groups are important. I think it's really, really important. But to find a moment that the group together, say, like, for example, I'll go back. One of the things that we had enormous amount of problems with was that when we came to teaching a specific circus discipline, regardless of what the discipline was, you would have the Russian school, you'd have the Mexican school, you'd have the acro sports school, Western European gymnastics, all that kind of stuff. Everyone had their method. And in the first generation of circus schools, all the teachers came from classical circus. So there was basically a guru kind of teaching structure. Okay, you see what I mean? People who taught specific disciplines in circus schools, if I'm being diplomatic about it, were running their own individual schools inside a circus school. Okay. Right. And there wasn't an enormous amount of adhesion to the overall educational philosophy of a school. The handstand teacher ran his own handstand guru class and blah, blah, blah. And what we're able to do in one of our first European projects was create a system where we could bring all these teachers together.
I participated in this, I think.
Yes, you did. And one of the first one with the juggling one, which you did. Okay, and that was one of our model workshops. It was at the very beginning. And it allowed us, first of all, to give a spotlight to each of these approaches.
Yeah, so real quick to describe for the listeners is that what that project was, I think it was 12 different circus schools that you invited the lead teachers from all of them to spend one weekend together. And we debated and then we debated for hours about what are the key principles that a juggling instructor needs to have. And we had to agree sort of democratically as a group. That was really interesting process.
And we had to agree what the best practice was. Okay. Yeah. That general, and you can have all these different, but as long as you're taking these things into consideration, you can have regional colors to it if you wanted. Okay. And we did that you can still download the results of all those discussions and that handbook on the FedEc website for free. And I think that's what's important. It allows a moment for everyone to get together and realize that the differences are really quite small compared to how big what you share really is. Okay, and we have a tendency to camp on our differences rather than to celebrate what we share as important. And it allowed us to define what was important for us as a community and what we defended.
That's the first time when I worked with that project I'd ever like seen anything like that model. But it also because another intention was to produce resources out of these meetings as well. So you're combining this thing of bringing localized specialists from around Europe together into one conversation to produce a shared resource. And then I think that's going to kind of lead us into our next conversation because there's a lot of politics, right? Like we learn in trying to get people to work together. And that experience, I was there personally with it, and it was magical to be there because I remember at the beginning of the week we were more tense with each other, but by the end of the week we were like laughing and making jokes
Yep.
because people are very serious about their training methods.
Yep.
So reflecting on some of these experiences, what were some of the main challenges in fostering dialogue? And we had a pre-meeting to talk about some of these ideas, and you told me that with like in London when you were getting that space going, trying to get teachers to value, building community, to sharing, like what resistance have you had to some of these processes of building community?
I think the biggest barrier was the simple question of trying to turn the conversation away from the person saying, why do I need to be part of that? Okay. What can these other people teach me? Why do I need to invest in that? Okay. Why do I need to invest the resources of my organization? Why do I need to invest all the knowledge that I've acquired in my life through my experience? What do I get out of that? And for me, the biggest barrier was to get people to accept the fact that at first, you don't get anything from it. You need to realize that everybody else gets something from it. Okay.
You're talking
And
about building
once,
from scratch too. So we're going
yeah,
back before
exactly.
there were models.
These
Like
are
now
from
there's models.
this is really from when there is nothing.
Yeah.
And to say that, to convince the people that you can't be that person, what am I going to get out of being with these other people? Is to convince them, okay, maybe turn their ego around and say, look, you need to realize what these people are going to gain from spending time with you. That's the first thing. Okay. You have important experience that you can share with people. Okay. And you realize over time that when you share, that's when the stuff starts coming back. You can't be there saying, what am I going to get from this? You need to realize that it's like a pump that you have to prime. You have to put time in. You have to make yourself available. And when you do that, there's a flood of stuff that comes back that you never know how valuable that's going to be to you. Okay. Because you can't put your finger on it at the beginning. And I think it's trying to convince, and then I'm going to say this, and because people running the schools with diplomas and stuff, and for everyone working in this sector, I think it's a daily struggle to have resources and things. And some of us have been very lucky and very privileged to have a certain amount of resources attributed to us or allocated to us. And I feel it's our duty from that position of bounty to share. You see, regardless,
some of us,
if
yeah,
we're,
some of I can relate because you're describing like my model, but I also came in when there were these networks set up. So I was observing and seeing that, oh, look at these people who invest in this and look at all that goes back to them. So I didn't start this practice blind. Like maybe I took it to another extreme, but I was imitating a model that was already being presented for me.
and what's important to realize is that the community that you're talking about now, the social circus community, when I see the dots of color on the maps that you showed and stuff like that, is exponentially larger than the performative aspect of the circus community, okay? Which is only normal, because the objective of a circus school, there is only one, which is to educate people to become professional performers. So there's one objective. But the social circus community, I feel, has such a liberating position in that your objective is how can circus be of value to so many other people with different needs. And that's where I find that there's, I mean, you guys know circus for people in different situations, people in prison, circus for people in, we have programs in our school for people, circus for people with autism, people that are homeschooled, people are in all kinds of situations. And it's circus for all kinds of situations is far more liberating, I feel, than honing your, I say, don't tell my teachers and stuff I'm saying this, but we're dealing with issues of educating people to do one thing, be a circus performer, where the social circus community uses the riches of circus practice to address the needs of people with all kinds of needs and desires. And I find that quite a fertile place for reflection.
I appreciate you recognizing that, because a lot of social circus is still, we're in the weeds, we're still struggling to get resources and things like that. But those of us who are here and passionate about it, I think it's because we see the same thing. We see the same potential. It's a lot larger. And for circus to just play a more significant role in culture and life. You just answered quite a few of my next questions.
The last thing, though, I want to say the last thing. We have now 86 members from all over the world. Okay.
FedEc,
the Federation, the European Federation of Circus Schools. And this is what I'm saying, that the only place in the world where we were going to find support for what we did was through the European community. Okay. So we had to set up in the European community because the educational priorities of the European community we were able to fit the educational priorities of our circus schools into the priorities of the European community, which allowed us to get operational funding for the European Federation. Okay. And that's been going on for them. But
a lot of people imitated now too.
And so having that base in Europe allowed us to have members in the United States, in South America, in Mexico, in Africa, in Australia, and having that base in a place that recognized the importance of what that community was trying to do allowed us to attach the other communities to it.
Great. So without me even asking you, you answered a lot of the questions I had on my list. So you did great. You did great. Super efficient. So in that case, I'm going to then let's throw in like a more fun one here. It's just like, if you could tell us about your first experiences with functional juggling, like how you came to know it, and then what you saw when you saw it.
Well, the first time I saw it was when you came to do the workshop for our first project in London for the European Federation. And what I appreciated about it, or what the importance that I saw in it was, and you said it so well, is that we forget all the things you need to learn before you learn to juggle. Mm-hmm. And the functional juggling, and I had spent my life since I was 15 years old learning to juggle. Okay. And I was kind of lucky that I learned quite quickly. So I don't know, maybe it was from the practice of magic before I was able to disassociate my hands, or or maybe I had a brain for it, who knows. But once that door was opened up, that you realized that it wasn't everybody that have had an opportunity in their life to play with things as much as we had, or had an interest to play with things as much as we had. So people needed to learn to rub their stomach and hit their head at the same time, or to do stuff, you know, you did the kind of things that, how do you disassociate? How do you recognize patterns? How do you live rhythm?
Right. So just thinking about juggling, yeah, as a capacity, not as a skill.
And exactly. And exploring that area of what you learn before you learn.
And then how, because now let's fast forward, that was 2000 and what, 15, 14,
Oh,
you were there
yes, easy,
quite a
easy.
while ago. So that
Yeah,
was your first time, but now, and then I've recently been back. You brought me to Ecole des Cirque de Quebec twice now.
yeah.
So why don't tell us now, because let's put some I mean, where to like put your not money where your mouth is, but explain
Well,
to us like how it's not just that you're having these ideas, but you are Ecole du Cirque de Quebec is an elite art training performance training center,
yeah.
but you
Okay.
also are investing a lot in developing. You have how many kids in your recreational program? Like
We have 1,200 participants in our recreational program.
that's a big project, so that's not nothing. So why don't now we talk about why that value is important to Ecole des Cirque de Quebec?
Right?
That's
And
community development.
it's important to this because the École de Cirque de Quebec was that before it was a school for professional artists. It
That was its
was
origins.
it was a recreational program with maybe 12 people in it, and it was, you know, and those people were young teenagers that became older teenagers that said, "Oh, we're going to start doing street shows and stuff like that." And over time, more and more people wanted to do it recreationally. So that program built up for, like, the degree program has only been in place 13 years, and we're celebrating our 30th anniversary this year.
Okay.
So the circus school was a community circus and a recreational activity for at least 15 to 17 years before it actually had a professional program in it. Okay.
But now you do
So
have a professional program and you are continuing to invest in enhancing the pedagogy.
yes, so we have a group of people that work on the educational system for the degree program, and the people want to be professional artists, but we have an entire team that develops initiatives in the recreational department. The recreational department represents 49%
There you
of all
go.
of our activity of the school and the revenue of the school,
Yeah,
49% of the revenue of the school. And I tell
that's a
you
lot.
that,
That's a lot.
well, what would happen, I could be perfectly honest with you, the school could survive without the degree program, but the
Yeah.
school couldn't survive without the recreational program.
Yeah.
Okay. And
And
but then what's important now with the functional juggling, what I find
right.
important is that the functional juggling things that we're trying to develop with the team now means that there are additional I don't want to say there are additional participants, I use that word now,
Okay.
that would benefit from a circus practice that we can't reach now. Because, I mean, if there's a big need in Quebec for activities for people, like all Western societies now, you have more and more older people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's
how do you keep older people motivated, stimulated,
mhm.
interested in their lives? And there's a big demand for stimulation and activities in retirement homes.
I feel like circus is also like one of those things on a lot of people's bucket list.
Exactly,
Like,
exactly.
hey, I'm in
And
an old
there's
prison home. Why not?
yeah, and there's tons of things that make it stimulating. There's the colors and there's the stuff. And functional juggling, for me, is a key to reaching these people because you can't do that with aerial stuff, and you can't do that with acrobatics. All
I
that
think
stuff is
you can adapt it. You can adapt it with the right teacher. I think you can. Not with juggling. We've just broken all the barriers though. Like with functional
exactly,
juggling, it's
exactly.
the full experience.
And yeah, it's a full experience. And yes, if we went, but I say for me, so as a juggler professionally, I have to say I find aerial far too much a hassle. Okay, and that's
Has its
just my
challenges, yeah.
that and the challenges with the safety around that, and you know, you're
Also,
entering in.
with these new types of partnerships you're talking about, in a lot of these situations, we need to be able to bring the circus into their places,
Exactly.
and aerials doesn't do that well.
No, aerial
So
doesn't
yes,
do
I
that.
think in general, all of us from this community are we're feeling the same thing. Is that the functional juggling, it just opens up connections and opportunities. And Ecole des Cirque de Quebec is one of those schools that values that community development. I observe that when I'm there from my conversations with you, and I'm really grateful that you've been supportive of this project over the last 15 years or so.
No,
And
it's fabulous. It's fabulous.
we're going to wrap up the interview now, but it's not over because the breakout rooms, people will have a chance to ask you more questions directly. So
Okay.
we like to keep this part sort of overview, and then now people have a sense of what you're working with, and then hopefully we'll get some good questions and conversations from there. So thank you so much, Tim,
Thank you,
for
Craig. Thank you,
participating with
everybody.
us today. I'm going to introduce the next guest, who is going to be Sara Papadato from Italy, and she's going to be presenting the Self Project, which is a network, is one of the first focused socially inclusive circus network focused. It came out of the functional juggling movement, but as we've been developing these conversations, we're realizing like, oh, it's not just jugglers, it's everyone in circus who wants to have these conversations, and that the conversations we're having are a little bit different because they're focused, with more medical intervention type of ideas. And so Self is a project that's trying to create organization, community around this idea.
It's quite tough to talk about after Tim, so I'm really privileged and honored to be here. So we are going to give you some information about our experience in Italy and about our association, Self-APS, Functional Juggling in Italy. As Craig told, it's an association based basically on functional juggling. So yes, it's the first in Italy. And the quad props method came in Italy in 2016 when Lapo met Craig for the first time and immediately understood his ideas and the power of his ideas. He became a trainer, and then in Italy, the workshops have been held throughout our country. Are 30, at least 30, from South to North Italy. So what the Quat Props Italy was born in that year, and in 2018, Lapo published a research on the juggleboard, working with people with cognitive disabilities. And Quat Props Italia was not really an association. It was just the name of the workshop related to Craig Quat. And then with going on with time, the need to be legally recognized in Italy was growing. And then arrived Francesco Boni, joined Lapo, and he was conducting some researches about a creative way to experiment the juggling props in that time. And nowadays he's our social and media manager. And at the first Italian functional juggling convention, me and Eduardo, we joined the team. And Eduardo is the president, so now when everyone knows. And we were really thinking about what to do. And at least in November 2023, we decided to begin the adventure with the association. And so this is the the team. Now actively, we all are going on with our works, and especially Lapo works with people with cognitive delays or autism, and he always continues studying. He publishes a book on motor skills in educational circus, and founded a great performing arts company for people with intellectual disabilities. So, yes, great. And I'm going quite quick on this part of the presentation. Francesco is working with patients with Parkinson's and with aphasia and language disorders. Eduardo is the coordinator of a functional juggling project in a special needs school in Milan. And then he works in a hospital with people with cystic fibrosis. And then in some educational centers. And me, I work in the same school of Eduardo, and I work with other people and also with kids with learning disorder and ADHD and emotional fragility. But this it was only just to show you that all four of us, we are working like in a clinical, more clinical setting nowadays. And most of us came from the study from motor sciences, and we usually work most of time in one-to-one work, and in the clinic and also in the center for special needs. We are using to work in team, talking with other specialists such as psychologists, physiotherapists, logopedists, in the order to create multidisciplinary projects. So what we discover in this year and a half of living for the association is that, and what we want is that we want to be open to other new methods to expand our concept of functional juggling, because we are really embraced the quad props, because we all were born with Craig Quat and quad props. So, but we are really open and always keep in touch with other methods like hula hoop and body, spin poi, brain ball. And nowadays we are going to keep in contact with cognitive fitness, and it's a new one. And we discovered in the last weeks. And then, so when the association was born, it was the most important goal for us was to create connection between the people that did the workshops in Italy, and to continue to keep in contact after the workshops. So in this year, there's a little community of people, a collective. We are 10, 12 people, and some of them are here, and I really want to thank them for keeping in touch and interact with us and sharing experiences, and also just to have suggestions from them and also for us, just really an exchange. And then after the beginning, we start really to think about the goals. And what we want to do is to promote and encourage the training, for sure, for new people. More people can we reach, and better is for the world, I think, as Tim really say in a better way before. And also, for us, it's important that everyone who did the workshop must retrain itself, and also with other facilitators. Okay, so in the future, what we wanted to do is to do once in a year a training for all the people who had the workshop. And then we really want to continue participate and support the Erasmus project. And because we realize that, as I say, we are really focused on one-to-one work, and more in a clinical setting, but different focuses enrich one each other, and really for the community, the European community, it's important that everyone can share his point of view, and that also accept the importance of the others, okay? And also, as Craig said, also in South America, probably the needs are different, but their focus and their point of view is so important for everyone, as us. That's what we think. And then develop new scientific researches, because what we saw in these years in Italy is that when you go and present your project, we really believe in our work. We know our work is valid, but when we arrive and we present the project, sometimes it's the scientific evidences in our specific work are not so much. So what we want to do is to go deeper, and that's our objective for the next years. And in 1 year, we can say that we are going on working on these goals, but we really would like to improve the network step by step, creating a group of work, and also we need suggestion from you all that are here, how to communicate maybe in a better way, and also if someone of you is interested in developing new scientific researches or is doing it, we really want to share with you these themes today. And thank you for your attention. I was really short, but I hope it's been useful for everyone. I don't know if Lapo wants to say anything else.
No, I mean, thank you, Sara, for explaining, to describe our association. Really glad about this, and we are ready to talk more about the work and even receive more questions in the rooms.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. That was actually, the timing was really good because we're at about 50 minutes into the presentation now, and we want to get into conversations. We want to give the audience a chance to participate as well. So what we're going to do now is open up the breakout rooms. For those of you who are not familiar, I think most of us are now, right? But if you go to the bottom of your screen, there should be 4 squares that say join breakout room, probably in your own language. And you click on that and you've got 2 options. You can join the room to talk with Tim Roberts and myself more about broader community development ideas, or you can visit the self room to learn more about how they are organizing regionally around Europe.
Hello, everybody. How you, Craig?
You got started before me. You got the recording.
Oh, no, we were just waiting. Lorena and I were just chatting before everyone got into the room, so we just didn't stare at each other on the Zoom.
Okay. Yeah, so now the recording started. And this is just an open space for people to continue to ask questions and dive deeper. Does anyone want a question to start? Veronika.
May I, please? Can I have a question?
Oh, yes, go for it. Circus Hub.
Hi, this is Panayotis from Greece, and I heard you before. First of all, congratulations and thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you.
And I heard you before, you were saying about the recreational part of the circus and how it applies to the elderly people. Wouldn't you think that
How it applies to who?
elderly people?
Oh, elderly people. Okay.
Because it's my impression that besides that, which is very important, do you think that it also applies to young people and as a remedy to social media plague, I would call it? Do you think that it's helpful there?
Yes, because I think that it's all about getting into the zone, and the people that have developed all the things that keep young people or even everybody now scrolling on their phones understand how to manipulate the zone in a person. And you know, when you're practicing something that you enjoy, whether it be juggling or drawing or reading, you get into a zone where time doesn't have any meaning anymore. And you're in the zone. That's what we say in English. You're in that zone where you're concentrating. And
I think we call it flow in this community.
flow. Okay, is that the word people? Okay, flow. You get into the flow. And the practice of juggling, the practice on concentrating on something, the practice of learning incrementally in little bits, you know, just not trying to learn something that's too difficult, but learning something that's just beyond your capacity. And when you're successful at that, you want to learn the next little bit, and you keep going on and on and on. There's in sports, they call that the zone of delicious incertitude. And when we're teaching people, like, I'm quite aware of that when I teach people juggling in my school, or when I taught juggling in the school, that if they wanted to undertake learning juggling figures that were too difficult for them, they wouldn't be able to be motivated long enough to be able to learn them. So you have to find an intermediate figure that will help them learn that later, but it's within their capacity to learn, so they can be successful at it, and they get that shot of motivation or dopamine or whatever you want to call it to do that.
You're saying to me, so that's like, because he was asking about how circus can be used as a sort of like an intervention for social media illnesses.
Well, and I think that's the thing, is you can use it. I think that if you can find somebody to find the same motivational shots from a physical practice, that would eventually replace the dopamine hits that you get from scrolling through social media.
Like, it's not even, yeah, I'd say too that it's like traditional sports as well. I don't think they hit as hard with this dopamine, and you have to practice them at a higher level to get that hit. And if we're competing with the social media tools, then I think circus can compete better than competitive sports.
Yeah, because imagine this is how this is how people get dopamine hits now. And something hits their eye visually that stimulates them. Boom, boom, boom. And lots of little things that interest them, whether it be raccoons or fashion or cooking or whatever. Don't. You always get a shot of something. And I think, like functional juggling, you can be successful at something relatively quickly, that you can hook onto it and build that interest little by little. They're not big steps, you see. The big steps are what kills it.
I can make a connection here. It's that instant gratification, because social media is all about instant gratification, and traditional circus methods are not about instant gratification. They're about hard work and I think with the the inclusive functional approach to circus, we're changing that conversation as well, which is we're saying, no, circus is highly stimulating and instant gratification as well. Like, we can bring you in, and I think the more accessible we are, the more competitive we can be with social media. Veronika had a question.
Yes, thank you. I really enjoyed what you were saying, Tim, and my question is mainly about, like, you're a circus person yourself. So, like, how could you juggle with the preferences? When do you sacrifice your time you could have been spending with juggling to this other aim to create the circus school, manage it. So like, how can you do this? And just really, so it's a very hard choice all the time. And my experience is that I sacrifice my juggling because of doing all the community work and the administrative things. It's like, you have a good recipe for me how to conserve my juggler inside?
Yeah, well, one day I realized what I enjoyed about juggling. And once I understood that, I looked for that in everything else I did. In that the juggling was just a visual or a physical manifestation of something else that I enjoyed. And basically it was, I've boiled it down now after all these years, that it's putting a semblance of order into chaos. Okay? Because someone that doesn't know anything about juggling might watch me juggle for 3 minutes, and if I didn't drop, they would think that I did a perfect routine. But they don't know that I might have thrown something higher or lower, or I had missed a throw and I corrected it and they didn't see. And if I looked at the individual throws, they weren't all perfect. But I got from the beginning to the end and nothing was dropped. So it can be considered a certain kind of success. And so that's a semblance of order in chaos. And once I realized that my circus school is basically that as well, a circus school is an enormous chaos engine because it's got people in it, it's got circus performers in it. And they don't show up on time, or they don't read their emails, or today my lights caught on fire and I had to evacuate the entire school. So that was chaos, and canceled everything. And to make it through every school year without anybody being hurt, other than maybe a sprained ankle, you know, we're knock on wood, we haven't had any serious accidents at the school in ages. And to get through, and people graduate and people find jobs, all those, and given all the different things that to try to stop us and prevent us from doing that, every day is the same as trying to learn and perfect and perform a juggling routine. And I find that joy in giving a semblance of order in this chaos for everyone, the teachers and the students. You know, they know sometimes when schedules mess up and stuff like that, but the doors are open every day and they come learn their stuff. There's an order to the chaos of managing 300 people. And if everyone can come in the morning and leave at night and no one's died, it's been a positive day. And I find that managing the chaos is like all those years I learned to juggle.
Good, Veronika? Helpful?
Yeah, thank you. I suppose you still miss juggling on a way, don't you? Like
No. Look. I have all kinds of things in my office. I do this. I keep things for my fingers. I do this when I'm in long meetings. I do this under the table and no one sees what I'm doing. So I'm doing this. I'm manipulating. I have a Rubik's Cube that I do under the table when no one's looking. I have little tiny juggling things that I keep, that keeps my fingers and my brain a bit nimble. Oh yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, Veronika, because I've dealt with that too with myself, my own career. Like, I want to continue just making toys all the time. If I could have it my way, that's all I do. But I fell into this administrative role within the community where I have to focus on creating resources that document the things I've created in the past when I really want to go forward. So I've had that challenge too. But yeah, I think similar to Tim, I turn it all into a game.
Yeah.
Gamify life.
Yeah.
More questions? It doesn't have to be about community development, but that's sort of the theme. Tim's been around the scene for a long time. Sticklands, you guys are representing the UK right now. Tim spent some years there. Question?
What's the scene like in the UK?
Yeah. How's it? Do you know Sticklands, Tim?
No, I don't.
They've experimented with like 3D printing of accessible circus props.
Wow.
Yeah, and you can download the files on their website for free. So like, or not for free, it's like a 10 pound or something, is real cheap, and then you can print as many of the like juggle boards as you want.
Wow. Okay.
So they're interesting thinkers. You want to say hello, Gina?
I do. Hi everyone. This isn't actually a question from me. This is a question from my really good friend Chow, for you. So yeah. Shoot.
Yeah, so I'm coming at this from someone who's only been involved in circus for about 3 years, but through a journey of my own and realizing how much it can transform my life, I now work in a Steiner school, and I'm hoping to apply for a job where I'd be able to integrate this into the curriculum. I'm wondering how you get past people's already kind of stigmatized view of circus, because obviously I have no performance experience. I have, like, the nativity in year 2 was the last time that I got on stage. So I am completely fresh, but I'm so passionate about how much this helps. When I try to talk to the leadership team at work, they hear the word circus and instantly have a view of what that means. And I'm finding it difficult to communicate the social side of it, the community side of it, because that's how I've been kind of introduced to it. I guess my question would be, how do you communicate to people who already have that stigma in their brain?
It's valid.
Yeah, like how do you begin those conversations?
Good question. We all go through that.
Yeah. Where are you located?
I'm in Sheffield.
In
the UK.
In the UK.
There's a circus school in Sheffield, isn't there?
There's Green Top, yeah.
Green Top. And in fact, I would contact Green Top, and especially the person called Theo Greenstreet.
Oh, I met him on Sunday.
Hey, okay. Serendipity. Serendipity. Because he ran Circus Space in London, which eventually became the National Center for Circus Arts. He was the first chief executive of Circus Space.
Okay.
And he did a CLOR fellowship, so he knows how to talk education and business and everything. So Theo Greenstreet could be your person that can give legitimacy to the aspects that you're trying to talk to the Steiner School. Because he has that weight from his experience before.
Yeah.
And you should speak to him how Green Top or he could help open the doors to something like that in the Steiner School.
Yeah. Yeah, it's already, I've been learning to juggle at school, and the students are just copying. Like, I'm not even interacting with them sometimes, and they are now incorporating it in their learning. So it's taken a life of its own. But I came at this from a psychological perspective, because I was trying to become a therapist.
Yeah.
And juggling, and this has just come together within that and kind of taken a life of its own. And now I'm trying to manage that life of its own within offering the students something that's structured.
I mean, you're trying to sell it to your managers and your bosses as well, right? You're trying to get this pathway into their system.
Yeah. movement.
into a system that preaches that they would accept it, but there is kickbacks, there is resistance.
And in the UK, Teo created that system.
Mm.
He created a system of education for circus arts and a youth program in London at the circus space when it was the circus space.
Awesome.
I think there's
So if
other
you talk to
projects
Teo
as well.
and say that Tim sent you because he was my boss for years.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. I will do that.
I feel like there's a lot of good examples in the UK now, and if you're saying like it does help to be able to reference like other models of success when people are resistant. You can say, oh, well, look at these guys, look what they're doing, and they have a history of working around the UK. But I think what you're describing is like you're trying to get embedded into an institution, which is like a bit more challenging. A lot of my strategy with this resistance has just been, like with many things in life is like F them all and just go my own way. So
Yeah.
with US and stuff, I found that I had two strategies. One, I would volunteer and just like let them see it happen, like do whatever it takes to just whatever you have to do to get them one experience with you. And if it doesn't work with the program you're in now, try a different one, because there will eventually be someone who's like, oh yeah, we get what you're doing. But
Yeah.
it's not always going to be the first one that you meet.
Yeah.
But you only need one.
Yeah. And then the other option is
Yeah.
just go your own route, make your own programs.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
just partner with their networks, right? Like use their network. So you don't need to work with them, but you would like access to be able to, communicate with their public to let them know about the
Yeah.
services you offer. Then you let the public decide.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a big network already. It's a connected organization that's based on Steiner principles. But yeah, movement, I think they definitely need more movement. But like you said, yeah, it's a lot to think about. I'm fairly fresh again, so I don't want to take up too much time.
I see Kevin O'Keefe is here. Kevin's got a bit of experience with community development, right? Being one of the founders of the ICO.
Yeah. I was just thinking about Jamie's situation. An easy fix is to offer an after-school class, like I did in New York City at the Steiner School. And then, like Craig says, once the people get a taste of it, I mean, you can call it a juggling class or intro to circus class or whatever suits your particular teaching skills. But once I think you get it in front of the people and the kids get excited about it, they're going to share that with parents, and parents are going to share that with the administration, and it's going to have a life of its own. When I first started teaching maybe 40 years ago in New York City, I taught one after-school class a week at the Little Red Schoolhouse down in the Village. And within maybe 2 years, I was managing 40 different after-school programs because word got around that something was useful and was fun and was accessible and easy. And there was a product at the end of those 10 or 12-week sessions where then you can take the after school class that you have and then do a little 10-minute show for the rest of the school that ends up serves two purposes. One is to promote your after school program, but the other is to show the administration, oh my God, I had no idea that these kids could do that. And that kind of surprise and that never fails to get people's attention when they see kids that look, the same issue is going on here. They see circus in a box and they see the kids in a box, and you're saying, no, there's no box here. There's a lot of possibilities. So best of luck to you. I think that's a great project.
Yeah.
Thanks for the shout out, Craig.
Yeah, I think that was actually helpful. The other thing is, Tim's he's just up in Canada, and then Kate and Kevin, you're both people who participate in the United States, right? Like networking. And I came from that background as well. And I think when I started around 2010, it sort of like peaked 2010, 2014. And there's been a lot of fragmentation from what I can tell from when I was last there. It seemed a little bit more unified at one point. Do you want to maybe comment on some of the challenges you're having, and maybe Tim can comment back? We don't have to go so detailed. We can, we can talk general.
Kevin, do you want me to?
Go ahead, Kate, and then I'll just pick up on it.
Aiko, what?
I'll pick up on it after you speak.
Okay. Well, yeah. No, maybe you should go first.
I don't know. I don't know exactly what to say because I'm stepping in. ICO is always trying to refine or redefine itself, and we're in another growing stage, I'd say, where we are trying to figure out how to serve and how to include the biggest possible constituency. And so we're kind of relaunching a new mission and we've been doing some deep diving, and that's why I haven't been too much involved in ICO since after I founded it, and then after about 10 years, I let it go to the next generation, and the leadership has gone on. I've always been impressed and thrilled with the way the organization has morphed and changed. I still have that same impression with this current leadership, with the board and with the executive director. I'm excited to see this organization grow and to be as inclusive as possible. And those are the efforts. I've been making efforts in that way for the past year, mostly behind the scenes, working with the board. And I went to the most recent EdCon. We do a festival for youth every other year, and then on the off years we do EdCons, more teacher training development, kind of like this, but on a bigger scale with 100 or 150 teachers at an event, and like a weekend long best practices and every aspect of circus and youth circus that we can think of.
So you had an EdCon this year?
Yeah, I was in Dallas in October, and some great things personally and professionally came out of that. One that I really appreciated was I brought a huge map of the United States, and we created all these different visual connections in our lineages and histories, essentially using Lou Yi in San Francisco and Hovey Burgess in New York City as our kind of like grandfathers, and then all the different organizations and circuses that have come out, since like the 1970s.
I'm an ICO baby, I came out of ICO as well. And so I really have a lot of love and support for this organization, but I've just been hearing things from the US or observing too, like the growth, how it's sort of like, it's the same thing with everything in the US, everywhere else in the world just seems to be going in the direction with these social projects. And in the US, like for some reason, maybe it's a cultural barrier. Maybe it's like what Tim was experiencing back in the 90s in London when he was trying to get these teachers to care about coming together. Because there's so much impact from that, right? And I'm doing it in Mexico, I'm doing it in Argentina, I'm doing it in Europe, and everywhere it's just like a celebration. And then I look at my hometown and I'm like, guys, what's going on? Where's the community energy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
I can speak to some of that. Because I think, and Kevin, good to hear you're doing work behind the scenes. There's some different experiences in the community of different from what it sounds like you're experiencing, but in terms of social circus, because that's what you're asking about specifically, right, Craig? It's very hard to say. I mean, circus in general and social circus in the US, I think, has always struggled because of funding, because our country doesn't recognize it. And so people are always trying to fit into some different box, like, is it sports? Is it theater? Is it something else? And so that's one thing that has just always been. And ICO was very lucky for years to have a lot of major support from Cirque du Soleil. And then, they went bankrupt and things happened there. But another thing that happened is at some point, because leadership has changed and perspectives have changed, and for several years, ICO had there was a dedicated social. Oh, I should say also, I was part of the Social Circus Committee from 2017 to 2023 or so. And now I'm part of the Diversity, Equity, Justice Committee on ICO. But there were several years where social circus was really recognized as a specific practice and focus, and people were connected. And then somewhere around the time of the pandemic and maybe some leadership differences, someone at ICO decided to not put that focus. There's a two-part thing. Our committee wanted to make social circus discussions more accessible to more people. Like, we wanted to stop having this very narrow network and make it open to more people. So that was, I think, a good thing that still needs more refinement. But then there was a way in which people started saying, and it's all circus is social circus. And that's just a sort of interesting thing, because you can make that argument, but I think it misses much of the point of social circus. And so then ICO stopped sort of allowing people or encouraging people to emphasize a focus on social circus in their conferences. And then it just seems to have just sort of, and then with the pandemic, a couple of really long running places have shut down. Craig,
Yeah.
you look like you have a question.
Well, I think just already from the start, like just listening, actually, and I'm kind of putting it together in my head now from being in many other parts of the world. It's like everywhere else, there's two different conversations for these topics. Like, they're not trying, one organization is not trying to capture both. Like, so like, and even with the self-organization, the other group in the other chat room right now is what they're recognizing is like, we really have our own distinct culture. Like, we've managed to accompany other organizations in their growth processes, and they've helped us grow, but we're entering a phase of development where it's like our conversation is so specialized now. Like, we really just need to focus on creating our own spaces and continuing to collaborate with all the partners that are there for crossover and things. I don't know, Tim. Microphone.
I'm sorry, I really don't. I'm sorry, I don't think I have anything to add other than that Craig put in. Sorry about that.
It's right. I think it's just interesting for you to be aware of, just up there in Quebec, or like, I don't know if it's, I feel like for me, I've been exploring this idea for a while. Like, probably Tim, you'll be involved with it one day. Is I'm trying to get more of an for the social circus conversation to spread it out instead of focusing on like US, but do like North America, because there's so much happening in Mexico and Canada. And I feel the people who are doing social circus in the US, they're also spread out and they can feel sort of isolated. But if we connected that conversation with the stuff that's going on in both of those places, I think we might have more success. Like, that's, I've had to go so global, right? Because it's not that big of a conversation. So for me to make a career out of this, I've had to involve so many different places.
There could be ways of connect, because there's a massive community in Vancouver, for example. And to try to figure out how maybe there could be connections between any project in Washington State with Vancouver, for example, and try to create bridges across the border in those ways. There's a massive, there's in Toronto and also in Welland, which isn't far from, I think, Niagara Falls.
What are some of the Social Circus Network projects in Canada like? Do you have any?
Across Canada. See, again, there's a disparity between the province of Quebec and the other provinces across Canada. See? And in the federalist system, the provinces are divided even more so than states in the United States. They're almost divided like individual countries in Europe.
Okay.
So like if you're from Indiana and you want to go to university in Illinois, you're going to pay out of state fees. Okay. But the equivalent of if someone from British Columbia wants to come study in Quebec, they pay the equivalent of international student fees. It's massive. Okay. So there isn't a lot. And then the federal Canadian government doesn't support circus arts in the same way that the Quebec provincial government supports both professional circus arts education and social circus. So there's a discrepancy in cultural funding between the provinces as well. So there isn't a pan-Canadian social circus organization, for example. There's just individual groups in different major cities.
And then how did the social circuses get together and share in Canada?
Well, Karine, that you met her for, she runs the social circus programming in Montreal. And in fact, their organization is funded to organize a get-together across Canada. But
there is a gathering. There's a gathering.
There is a gathering, yeah. And there is a gathering, but again, it uses that same principle, like the FEDEC growing out of the support that Europe gives to the cultural or the circus arts education sector, and how that was able to spread out to the rest of the world. Karine uses the funding and she gets for her social circus project in Quebec to be able to pull in social circus initiatives from the rest of the country.
And a lot of the scale of the initiatives in Canada are much larger too. So like a lot of these institutions have their own like curriculums and things like that. So I think they're more sustainable even on their own, but bringing them together, even stronger. Whereas like in the US, it's a lot smaller organizations spread out and they don't all have their own in-house training programs and stuff like that. So I think the need to bring those people together is even higher.
And I think there's a barrier. I mean, there's no ignoring the fact that most social circus programs are understaffed and underfunded and overworked, and the weight and the complexity of the day-to-day can sometimes overwhelm the need to be able to connect with people on the outside. And that's a major barrier, to have the brain space to be able to concentrate on outreach for your own good rather than outreach just to get more participants in your program.
Because we're all just trying to keep our heads above water.
Everyone's trying to keep their heads above water. Yep.
Yeah. So it takes time for the industry to change. And you got to put your own gas mask on first.
Yes, make sure you have your oxygen mask on before you help others with theirs.
Yeah, I'm helping everyone on the plane before. That's my style. And I can see how it's not necessarily the most constructive, but I think we've been going for a while. So are we closing out the breakout rooms, Veronika? Is that what you're reasoning?
I just saw that there are a couple of questions in the chat box. So I think 3 of them. So maybe if we give a chance to that team can answer those ones.
It's okay to say, that like I was reinforcing this idea. I think the solution for the US is to connect it more to the outside world with everything, not just circus. That's a flat statement. Marianne C. asked,
how do you deal with competitive attitudes? Whoa.
Is Marianne still on this call?
I see his square.
Yeah, she's still here. Marianne is from Greece, but she speaks English well.
She cannot switch on her mic, and she has a baby as well, so that's why.
Okay.
Okay, so just answer what you feel.
Well, there wasn't an ICO until I wrote a letter to the 10 or 12 people I knew that did something like youth circus, maybe 25 or 20, 30 years ago. And I just wrote them, Marianne, I wrote a letter and I said, I want to get together for a long day of exchange. And you can ask me anything you like, and I'll share everything I know about circus with you. And I don't need to know anything. If you want to keep something secret from me, you can do that. But I will offer anything I know about insurance and vocabulary of tricks and how I put together a show, and everything I know about circus is available. And I basically went with that attitude. And I think there were 7 or 8 people that showed up that day it was in Massachusetts. And we spent the whole day. And by the end of the day, we realized how much we had in common and how useful it was to meet again. And so that was the very beginning of what ultimately became ICO, and you know, the rest is, as they say, history.
And if I may, in your question 2, on the next to last paragraph, no one or no group of people takes the steps to do it, to make a Greece umbrella association for social circus. In fact, you realize that, yeah, no one will do it, so you have to do it, Marianthi. I'm sorry, Marianthi, you have to do it. Because everyone else is saying, no one's doing it, no one's doing it. Mm-hmm. And someone has to decide to do it, just like Kevin said. And it's like I said in the first part, you have to give it out. You have to give your time. You have to say, look, Greece needs an association, and do what Kevin said. Find the 10 groups that are the most established, or the ones that you know, and invite everyone to some place to have a day, and to have a day and say, look, guys, we know we need this. What do we do? And I can take it on, but I need everyone else.
I think that's actually like a good note, is you have to do it. Like, same thing with
you
me.
have to do it. If we waited for other people to do it, it'll never get done.
Victoria.
I have like the next question, what comes after, because in Poland we stopped after this step 2 times. I've heard about third time also. Like we were able to establish organization, and then we always got stuck on the bureaucracy and this moment that at the beginning we are super open for sharing, and then all of us, you know, in this branch, we just have to take our oxygen masks and we have to focus on our organizations, and we always got stuck at the same step for the last 10 or more years. So what's the next step? What was the next steps for
when you say you got stuck by the bureaucracy, what bureaucracy?
I would say we got stuck at definitions also, and the idea of our direction, but also the lack of money, and that none of us had the resources to actually write the grants and the projects for the umbrella. We all got of course we are all overworked. So we are overworking at first at our private organizations, and that's the stage we are all stopping, even though we really want to. So
But you're all part of something in Europe, right, Victoria?
I don't have this feeling. Like some of the organizations, yeah, they have a stronger or weaker networking in between other circus organizations in Europe. So yeah, some of them are, but not as many as you can imagine.
When you got together in those 2 or 3 times, was there any exchange of skills, something that was fun, something that the participants themselves would get value from, other than you know, the organization, and like thinking sometimes we can get so bogged down in like what's the long-term goal, that I feel like the immediacy of, well, I'm learning something. I didn't know how to teach plate spinning that way, and oh, I didn't know that you could do partner acrobatics in that form. Those kinds of things. Was anything like that happening?
Yeah, actually the first 2 meetings were totally focused only on sharing and exchanging, and then we got to bureaucracy. So what I'm taking now from you, I see that probably lessons learned now. After those like maybe 2 meetings of integration and exchange, then settling down the basics of the structure.
Breakout from news. The breakout rooms will close in 5 minutes.
Yeah, we could come back to exchanging and just focusing on like just more and more networking. Maybe that's the answer.
Is there an event in Poland that you all go to, Like, is there a circus festival, or is there like a festival that happens in the summer where a lot of you find yourselves there anyway?
Yeah. And when we gather there, we are trying to make a meeting, but we are not meeting, but sometimes we are deciding who's from our Polish umbrella makes officially from the umbrella the workshop for the community, sharing some circus pedagogy stuff. But still, like, we are still individuals. That's the problem. We don't stick as a group because we are not like making it a flow all the time. So
Yeah, maybe Kevin's right. Maybe you should just focus on the get-togethers, and I think eventually the bureaucracy will become needed.
Yeah.
In fact, it's to build the community above yourselves before doing the bureaucracy. And don't worry about it. It could be years before the bureaucracy happens, but build your community.
Yeah, I think it's like, think about it like this, like the kids want to have fun, and then ultimately one of the older kids is going to become and take the role of the parent who says, okay, guys, we have to get organized now. But in the beginning, just make it as fun as you could, you know, as useful. Like, hey, will you teach juggling, and I'll do partner acro, and you do tight wire, and we're just gonna do like an hour on each. Right, and maybe we do it right before this circus festival that we're all gonna. We all say, let's get there a day early and just play and teach each other.
Thank you so much for your answers. I got so many things now to rethink. Thank you.
Best of luck.
Did we get all the questions from the chat, because they're going to be closing the room now? So I think Marianne also had a question about competition, right?
Yeah, how we dealt with competitive attitudes. I just ignore them, tell you the truth.
I think that's a great strategy. But it does become a barrier, though, when you're trying to get, when you have a first initial group of people who are like, okay, we all agreeing to do this horizontally, and then you get one or two people in the group that are like, oh no, I need to be heard more than everyone else. It creates challenges.
Yeah.
And I've had to figure that out too.
What did you figure?
To be selective. To be selective, because people need to know how to participate socially in these settings. And so, I mean, I've gone pretty hardcore actually with my project, with like a zero tolerance type of thing, but I'm not sure if that's going to work for everyone. Like, I'm in a luxurious position where I have enough audience and interest that if someone comes in and I'm like, look, dude, you're just not getting the idea here of how we're sharing, then I'll just tell them to go away. But not everyone has that. Like, especially if you, like, I'm also working globally, so I can move around. But if you're stuck in one country, and I've seen this in some countries, I won't mention names, but there's these personalities that they're just like, they have to be, I don't know, in control of things. And they really make it personal instead of about a collective conversation. And yeah, that I don't have an answer for, other than for me to just avoid them. But we're not all that lucky. I think another way is sort of like, or use the strategy that I used with like European development. So if you think of countries as people, like in France and Germany, I didn't get a welcome that I was hoping for. So I just went everywhere else, and I just started the conversations everywhere else. And then now those places who were resistant to my conversation are part of it, because so maybe you have these people in the community who are like, oh, this is how I teach juggling, and I've been doing it for so long, and I'm the best and the master. And I've met those guys, and I said, okay, you're the master, I'm going to go someplace else. And I just kept sharing. The breakout rooms are closing. We're going to head back just to say a wrap up. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tim, a lot.
Thanks you
as well. Your insights were helpful. Appreciate it. Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Victoria. Thanks, Jamie, Gina.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Okay, cool. Hello to everyone. Thanks to join us in this room. Sara more or less explained you who we are and what we are doing. So, if you want to ask us something, we are ready for questions. Hi, Harriet.
Okay, recording is on. Lapo is here. We are
Okay.
waiting. Sara also, so the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Okay. Nice to see you face to face. Okay, yes, that's it. We are, let's say, the oldest quad props group in Europe, and we started in 2016. And we started to develop the one-to-one approach that I think we are quite expert in this. And now we are joining the other European teams, and we're discussing about our job and the new ideas of sharing. Hi, Marcus. So the new ideas of sharing, we are just discussing about Juggling Garden. We just came back, me and Sara, from the European meeting that was in Budapest this weekend. And so we discussed and we are trying to networking with all the other European teams. And it's a really nice and interesting moment for functional juggling around Europe. And nothing, that's what we are doing right now. So, some questions. I can tell you whatever I want, but maybe you're not interested in that. So,
Lapo, can you tell a bit more about the one-on-one? Because you say you're specialized on that, and I know you're doing a lot of work with that. Can you explain a bit more in what context you're doing that? For which target groups?
Okay, I'll try to talk about this, but also my friends, they can talk because we are working in a different environments. Sara and Edoardo, they're working in the public school of Italy, and I'm working in the private. Me and Francesco, we are working in the private, let's say, clinical environments. Basically, okay, four of us, we are all more or less connected to the physical education. So me and Sara, we are graduated like physical educational teachers. Edoardo should be just missed 2 exams, and Francesco not really, but is involved as well in the kineologic environment. So we are really all close to this approach of working. That's what we were talking also in this weekend with the others. So we have really this biomechanical motor skills approach. That's what drives us to work in this environment. And usually we are working a keep. So basically, we have the role of the technical of the movement. So we develop games to reach certain goals that they are fixed by a group of people. So Sara and Edo, they are using the official guidelines of the Italian school. We are discussing the stuff with physiotherapists, neuropsychiatrics, and educators, and it depends by the place. So, by the way, by the team of people that are following this person, these people, and we are doing like individual program of rehabilitation. So for sure, working one-to-one is quite intense work because you have to focus on something and measure the results. That's why we are quite close to the measuring, because basically we spend our time doing workshops and doing sessions and measuring the results of our sessions. More or less one session could be from 5 till 25 to 30 minutes long. It depends from the people, for sure. When I work with autistics, now I started with 3 minutes. Now I'm getting to 8, because you know the time of attention is really short. So it depends. Sometimes I do half an hour. It's almost personal training when you work more on the social aspects like inclusion, social working. So we can even use hybrid methodologies. You start first in one-to-one, and then you start to increase the groups, like first in 3, 4, 5, 6 people. So it depends by the project of rehabilitation that you are working in. You decide the way of working and the exercises that you have. That's why we are studying also other types, other methodologies of functional juggling, because quad props is ultra strong and works really, fit really well. But to have many tools as possible is really interesting for us, because you never know what you really need to achieve some goals. Do you want to add something, Sara or Edo?
You say
No.
you measure the results, Lapo. How do you measure the results? How do you measure
Okay,
before
first,
after?
I was just wondering to my colleagues if they want to add something. No, it's fine. Okay.
No, it's fine.
Okay. So measuring, it's depends case by case. Sometimes it's really easy to measure stuff because, for example, I got the timer because usually we work in I have like 6 till 10 people one by another, so I have the fixed time to work with them. So usually I have 15 minutes. So when I start, I put the timer and I see how much time is passing. So usually they go away before, sometimes they reach the 15. So in this way you can measure. So this is the time of attention, for example. You can measure the time of attention. I'm working with this autistic, for example, he has really, really short time of attention. We are talking about 40 seconds or a minute, and we are measuring the rolls of the ball on the juggle board. So he started like with 4 rolls. So we don't follow primary composition. That's not important. It's just how many rolls he can do without losing attention. We started with like 4 rolls, and now we are at 50 rolls. So for sure, in 4 years, we increased 10 times, more than 10 times, like more than 12 times, the capacity of attention of this guy. Another thing you can measure on juggle board, for example, is you are juggling and you do the primary composition and you see how many balls they roll out of lanes, for example, because this is the strength control. In this way, you measure the strength control and you see how effective is the application of the strength. Yeah, that's it. Then, for example, you can use other ways of measuring. When I did my study on the juggle board, we were using like, this is an application on mobile phones, is a game. It's called, I think it's like Reflex Fight, okay, something like this. And it's a game when you just tap. It's a game, you have 9 points on your screen. One became green, they're blue, sorry. You have to tap the pink one, and then it changes another one. So you have 30 seconds. You have to match how many points, how many circles you did. And this is another way to match the results, because you do this like at the beginning of the session, the first session, at the 20th session, at the 15th session, and you measure how much the coordination eye finger is improving. So it depends if you're looking for this or not. So it depends for what you're looking for. Many things is quite easy to measure because you can see during the evolution of the sessions. Other things you have to be more precise, but you can use, for example, in our place, we use the ABC motor test. That's another way of measuring things. So many ways. Did I answer to your question? Do you want to add something, guys?
I think I want to say to Garrett and to the other, sometimes it's difficult to measure while you're working. So sometimes. So if you really want to do, have to measure in a situation, maybe it's better to register.
Record.
Yes, record. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired. To record the session, and then it's big work, but then you can really be precise on what you need. And then I agree with Lapo that measurement depends on your goals. When you set the objective or goal, when I work in an adult center, special need adult center, when we set the goal, the objective, in the project, exactly under the goal, we have to write down how we can measure the final goal And that's really difficult sometimes at the beginning, but then when you have really clear what you want to achieve and how to measure it, it is easier than to plan for planning your work. For me.
Yeah, as Sarah said, the important thing is to get focused on what we want to measure, and don't find 7 things, because you measure 1, 2, 3 things maximum. Otherwise, it's quite easy to get confused or to mess it up. So it depends from the rehabilitation of task that you have. You have to fix really clear what you want to measure, and even find some interesting way to measure it, because you can measure in many ways, many things. For example, if you're working with cup waters, and you want to focus on the skill of pouring water, you can measure how many water you got left. So after the session, you go and check how many water you got left in the glasses. This is a measure of precision of movement. You can see the difference. I mean, you started at the beginning, it was losing like half liter of water, just to say numbers. Now it's losing 25 centiliters of water. It means that the precision is increased by the 50%. What Sarah says is really true. When I did my study, I was recording all the sessions and then I rewatch them. Because when you're inside, you see what you need to see in that moment. Man baby is not what you really need to see. Because if you're using the juggle board, you're focused on the juggle board. Then when you see from outside, from the recording, you say, okay, Bali was distracted here, but he was doing this. Maybe you notice some postural problems. Maybe you need something that from outside you're not watching when you're working. For sure, you are working, so you're busy in something else. Then measuring doesn't mean boring. You can measure stuff without give like the idea that you're measuring something. I mean, I think we are good if we just play normally. For the participant, it's just playing. He doesn't think about he's measuring me. This is an exam. This is something like this. You just play. You have to be smart to understand how to measure things without giving the idea of measuring things. So it's just a normal session of jug. So that's it. You have to take your time before measuring. Otherwise, it's the classical approach of motor skills or motor physical education. So you start gaming with people, you start playing. First, you construct a relationship. Then, when you think you're ready, you can say, okay, from now we can measure stuff. Or maybe you can just start to measuring at the beginning if you're smart. But for sure, it depends case to case. That's why it's so hard to talk about this, because every environment, every rehabilitation group, every participant have different tasks. So we can talk about everything and nothing at the same time if you don't have clear examples or tasks.
Yeah,
Sorry, another example is the I and Sara have in the school we have a juggle board with the zip for
dressing up.
They use the zip, no? Is the yes, the zip is the specific work with for he or she or is a specific work. Sorry.
It was designed to help people to get dressed in autonomy. Autonomy is one of the main tasks that they ask us to achieve. Okay, so increase the autonomy of eating, increase the autonomy of drinking, getting clothes. Then for sure we are quite, for us it's not so hard because we have the base of motor science. So when we work with physiotherapists, more or less we speak the same language, so we can even work more technical on our movements and movements, range of movement. That's because we come from this environment. But at the same time, many of us they're working on like logopolistic approach. For example, Sara
Okay.
now I'm stepping in as well, so mixing with sounds, even social approach is interesting. So you can mix. I mean, we are really more into this because our background of studies bring us to this, or you can apply the same idea of different task capacities and measuring.
I think there's a question from.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes, can I ask something?
Yeah, sure. Sorry,
Hello.
I didn't notice.
Yes, congratulations
Sorry.
for all your work, and thank you for all of it. And I want to ask specifically about the goal you have for the scientific research aspect. And how is that working out, and how do you go about it? I mean, do you contact professionals and try to make them write papers on your work? How does this work?
Go, Sara.
And if you have also results on it, and you have available scientific research available, that would be great if we can share it. Thank you.
This is a great question, because this is our goal to achieve, but we are trying to. But in Italy, we are meeting some difficulties because it's not too easy to talk with the university, because we are searching for neuroscientists. And so nowadays,
with low budget, because the problem is the budget.
Yes, another thing is the budget. Maybe you can contact. We tried once to contact neuroscience in Milan, Neuroscience University, but maybe you need some students that are finishing their studying and want to do a study on your job, on your work. But at least we are searching for. So we are trying to connect with university. But what we saw is that the European network is going in the right way. There are other countries that had some budget for this field, this setting. So what we are going to do now is try to work with, for example, Belgium or other countries.
Germany as well. Also, Germany is going on this line, for example.
And also Germany, because what we can do is really few nowadays in Italy. But we really believe in this way. So nowadays, for us, it's difficult to say you can do this or this. But what the other countries are doing is, yes, to collaborate with the university. And that's the greatest opportunity nowadays.
But are you
Yeah,
only,
I mean, that's like, sorry.
Are you only looking for neuroscience? Couldn't you be looking also for psychologists, social, the social scientists, social science?
Sorry, Lapo, just want to add a thing. Yes, we are looking for everyone who want to do research in our field. So also psychologists, but for example, last week we received a study on in mathematics. A girl who did the final exam of mathematics degree at the university with a study on dyscalculia, a dyscalculic girl, and she did a project with functional juggling on solving, on some mathematical operation. I can't translate in English, sorry, but and finally with solving particular problems. But it's like 170 pages, really a big study, but with few practical things. But I think your question is really interesting, because yes, we are focused on the neuroscientific way, but it's really interesting to open the discussion and the research also in a social and a psychological way, or for example, in other subject. Sorry, Lapo.
No, it's fine. You completely agree. Yeah, for sure. We are just more interested in neuroscientific researches because we are more connected to this field. For example, I did a small study about juggle board and motor capacities that you can find on quadprops.net. And for example, another thing we are working right now is trying, if someone wants to help us or join to the group, we are trying to digitalize the juggle board. So to do a digital juggle board connected with Arduino and sensors, just to start to scribe, to note all the sessions. So in this way, you have an evidence of the increasing of the motor capacities during the repetition of juggle board sessions. So this is another work that you are bringing on that really for sure help us to demonstrate the changing in the demonstrate really clear the learning process of the participants.
Sorry, Lapo, I don't know, what did you say about the digital juggle board? Do you mean that you're measuring what somebody is doing?
Yeah, basically you're measuring the frequency of the balls, the precision of the balls, the timing of the session, and who knows what else, basically. For sure, the frequency of the movement, maybe also of the strength or the speed of the balls. You have all the data of the session, and we're even thinking, but this is quite utopic right now, but fortunately we think far, even to have a screen while you're juggling, so you can watch, if you want, the person, or you can watch the screen.
But is this something that is already existing, that you already have, or you're working on it?
We tried to do one digital juggle board years ago, but Arduino was at the beginning, and we stopped it because it was too tough to do the software, because basically it's a software problem. The idea is quite tough to do a software that just read and compute all the data together. Yeah. Now we are trying with the school, with Milan. They were waiting for this year-long course to start, but at least it didn't start. Now we're discussing with another juggler that is an informatical engineer. We are rediscussing this stuff. So we are still thinking to try to do this software and see what's going on. For sure, we are talking about one juggle board, 2 juggle boards in Italy. For sure, we are not thinking to use this, the center that we have, but a juggle board like that could help us to do some clear researches about this. We don't want to, for sure, change our way of working, but to have like 2 juggle boards that can give really precise results about what happened not really in the brain, because you don't measure the brain, but you measure the sequencing capacities, really, really precise, could help us to get more scientific with this work.
Okay, because I'm asking, there's a guy, maybe it's the same, maybe it's somebody you know already, but there's a guy who wants to come to the European Juggling Convention in August in the Netherlands, and he's a PhD student, and he wants to do, he's got a special juggle board with sensors in it, where he can measure all the movements, and he wants to compare this and use this with virtual reality stuff with people who can juggle 5 balls in the air. I haven't spoken to him yet, but it sounds very interesting, and it sounds a bit.
You should. Give me the number. I want to speak with him.
Sorry, I didn't catch that, Lapo.
No, give us the number, because our juggler who's following this idea right now is we are talking with Sean Pinchara, the one who was doing the drop swap notation, sorry, in Italian functional convention. So him right now. We are thinking to go to him. We already speak quite fast with him about this. We were just waiting for the School of Milan. So the idea is to go in this direction. So if you have already one, because now in 2025, because we started this idea in 2018, now in 2025 is not so impossible to realize.
Next year, get it.
No,
In
this
this
guy
way,
is
we are
coming
looking
2025 to the EDIC.
I'm trying. I'm not sure if I'm able to come, but I will see.
So can I ask something about this, which is extremely interesting? If there's such a machine exists, it would be groundbreaking. So what kinds of data are you looking for? Do you have a specific paper that describes that? So maybe if you can give it around, maybe we can find somebody, in another country to do it.
So right now we don't know exactly what we are looking for. For sure, it's the speed of the balls, the beat, the rhythm of the. It's not the rhythm. Sorry, I'm tired. I missed the right name. The frequency of movement and the precision. These are the three things that from us and the time. How long is the session? These four things that are really easy with an Arduino software. So these are the four things that I really would like to measure. Even because if you do, you can measure all the sessions. You just came out with the session with a database of what happens. So this would be really interesting. But maybe we can even think about something else. I'm not any digital engineering, so I even don't know what could happen with this. But
okay,
because in this way you can measure the advancing, the increasing of the capacity of one person.
Yes, of course. It's fantastic. It's a great thing to have.
Hopefully, yeah. Maybe in 10 years, all the jugglers will be like this. Who knows what's going on with the AI and something like that.
Yeah. I hope with the AI, let's hope that there are juggle boards around.
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, this doesn't. We have no problems with the ludic approach, so everything will be funny as well. We don't want to change. We don't want to go there like in the laboratory with white lights and white dress. I mean, I'm dressed in white because I work in the clinical, but I mean, we're always still thinking about a funny activity, but at the same time measuring this.
Well, thank you. I will juggle myself to the other breakout room and maybe catch you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, also for measuring then, when I did my study, I was also measuring things by watching. So you can even take notes and give some, for example, he's playing better. You can say from 1 to 10, I gave some topics 1 to 10. How does he remember the patterns from 1 to 10? 4, 5. But I mean, like this, okay, it's more a note for you that something that you can share to the others. Because maybe another one came and say, no, for me it's not 10, for me it's 4. Sorry, for me it's not 5, for me it's 3. And then you start to discuss about it's 5 or 3 or 4. If you're measuring with like time, numbers, and like this is objective. Otherwise, tend to be subjective. It depends what your measuring is for you, just to take notes, or you have to report this to someone else. So, also, okay, just to talk just a little more about the one-to-one approach, for sure, how we said, you have an equipe that tells you which are the tasks, but at the same time, you can even rediscuss about this. So we are apart on this and say, you told me this, but I saw this. Did you notice that the guy or the lady does something like that? So you basically is a dance, because when you start working in certain approach with like, especially with like quite tough disability, nothing is fixed, and even the tasks they really reset really quick, or sometimes never reset. So because maybe you're taking the wrong street, so you're pushing on one point and doesn't affect, but maybe you notice something else. So you go to the group and say, guys, this doesn't work, but I noticed that this works. So you can reset the work of all the team. For example, and now I'm working with a really tough autistic kid, and I noticed that if you sing to him, things are changing. So instead of other approach, you say, guys, let's try to sing to him. So now everyone is singing to him and things are going better. That for sure, singing is not functional juggling. But at the same time, you know, that doesn't mean that you have to do the primary composition with the juggle board. More skills you have, more tools you have to use. That's why more or less you are trying to play instruments, working with the rhythm. Now we understand the rhythm. Rhythm is really important. So we are doing the body percussion workshop. We are doing the music workshop just to have a basic of rhythm, because Craig doesn't tell us really clearly, but working one-to-one is quite easy to use rhythm like form of communication. Sorry, I lost the mic in the chat. Sorry, I lost the message and I'm not able to go back to the chat.
Okay, I can read for you.
Brava, thank you.
Sandra told us, my nephew is on the spectrum. When we used the juggle board with him, he enjoyed counting how many moves were made. That really helped him calm down.
And it was actually with Mr. Craig. We were at a circus school in New Jersey that Mr. Craig was one of the teachers there. And my nephew Parker was coming from a very difficult time. He was screaming, he was crying, and Craig wanted to teach him. He wanted to work with him. So Craig said, okay, well, what do you want to do? And Parker, the boy, said, I want to count, you know, so they counted, and then it helped him to settle down. Just like you were saying, okay, let's try music. Music makes them calm. For some people, it's music. For some people, it's counting.
Yeah, and do you hear me, guys? Because it looks like you're stuck.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the first step. Then you want to do something else. You start doing this. And for example, I'm doing the same. You start to count, because many of them, they're counting. You start to count, and first you count. Then you count movement. Then you're still counting and you change movement. So count is the link that brings you from one movement, from the juggle board movements to toss movements or whatever, clapping hand movements, touching movements. So count is when you find a link, you move from something to something else. So for him, it's funny. Which was the task? I don't know. Pouring water. You start to count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you still count, and at least you try to reach the movements you were supposed to achieve. Or sometimes you fail, but you discover other things. Yeah, so I mean, we really spent, even with us, we just really spend our time in our group discussing about this. Or in this one-to-one, I found this, so we just share videos. We just try to take things from the other methodologies. For example, now I'm using the egg shakers because I understand that the egg shakers really give more rhythm to the movement. So you have to do a sequence of movement with a ball. Instead of using a ball, I prefer to use an egg shaker, because for sure you have to modify, give more weight. Okay, then we have discussed about the prop, but using or you can just fill the ball with like something that makes noise. But the idea is to mix in noise and movement, because you have more feedbacks. Because I can count, but you have the extra feedback of the object. So that's what Craig calls SIFT, sensorial integration facilitation technique. So more feedbacks, more info feedback you have, easier is to learn things. So now we are discussing this. For example, Edo started to use colors, like to match colors, so to support the learning of new sequence of movings, supporting with colors. So it's like the juggle board, when instead of have the balls, you have the round, the circle of colors that you have to move and reset the colors on the table. So we develop, but this for sure is things that you can use mostly at one-to-one. So our methodology, sorry, is really going in that direction to study all this approach in basically using one-to-one to have more tools to achieve more goals. I don't know if you have other questions. Another thing to say is, when we work in one-to-one, we saw incredible results, unbelievable results, but it takes 3, 4, 5, 6 years to see results. Then after 6 years, if you match how you started, you see all the huge path that we did. But you have to be really good in focusing on really small details, because don't expect that certain type of kids, they just click and start to juggle 3 balls. I mean, it can take years, every week for 5 years. Then you see results, really big results. If you compare to the starting point, maybe then you lost it, because every year, day by day or week by week, if you don't check or describe or note how did you start, then you forgot this, and you don't see. Then you think, wow, but 4 years ago he wasn't able to move the hand, and now he's rising up the elbow. So that's cool, but you need a mindset for this. Don't expect results in 2 weeks, because they're not coming, especially if you're working with really tough disabilities.
Yeah, and at the beginning it's quite frustrating. Is right the word? The frustration.
Boring as well for me. People actually want to boring.
Could be this. For me, it was more like 7, 8 more years ago. Was quite frustrating at the beginning, because we are growing up. We grew up in a society where the performance is always at the first in everyday life, no? So if we have to improve day by day. No. So it's really, and then there is the day up, and the other day, the next week, maybe no, like a win every day, no? I can have a good day and a bad day. So if it's a bad day, you cannot maybe work also. I'm talking about severe disability, but I think it's simply like us. We can have bad day or good day. So if you put all the stuff in front of you, at the beginning, yes, it was quite frustrating, but then Lapo, I really agree with Lapo. So you have to see the plan in years, and maybe the objective, the goal is only to maintain some autonomies and not to increase. Or maybe can increase a little bit, but yes, you have to be really focused on what you are doing.
And in this speech, I'm really happy to be a street artist and a clown, because when you go to work, you have this, let's say, energy that comes from circus, that comes from the show, that you have to keep up the energy. So sometimes you just take a break, you say a bullshit, you say a joke, because I mean, even for them, I mean, it's quite tough, because they really work on impediment, like I move them. I have some physiotherapy tricks that the physiotherapy teach me. So you have to go there, start to stretch the arms, then stretch the finger. So sometimes it's even painful. Okay, so you have to be able to keep up the energy, the conversation. Okay, so I'm thankful to be a street artist, because sometimes I also use clown skills, street artist skills, comedian skills, because could be boring, frustrating, and tough. But yeah, it works. I'm so happy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's always also important that we work with this energy also with the people who work with this kind of adults or kids, because so
breakout from news. The breakout rooms will close in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
I call Ben the page master. The voice arrived from I don't know where. So it's really, for us, I think our energy, the circus energy, is positive for all the people there, not only for the people we are working with. So that's what I think.
That's working one-to-one is really interesting because it works also because you give attention to these guys. Usually they are lost in the group. So just to stay 10, 15 minutes with them one-to-one, wow, it works so much. At the same time, you have the others because you just take them off from the group. Sometimes, how Sara says, go there, show. I mean, I don't really like to show my skills, but sometimes showing skills is interesting because you make them happy. So sometimes juggling in the main room is cool because even if they clap the hands, I mean, you just move things. I work in really sad places. I work in these houses where they're old, special needs, and they're going to die there, and their life since the last 15 years. So just go there, and I mean, I'm a kinesiologist, but just go there and make them laugh sometimes helps everything. So you can connect this stuff also to our job that, I mean, is never, I mean, sometimes could have help also to achieve our goals. Yeah, I mean, for sure, you have to beware to be too much funny because you don't have to lose your role of functional juggler. They have to develop skills and achieve goals, but at the same time, you can just a little shake the environment where you go. So it's quite tough balancing. So to keep my words quite on the scale, okay, but it happens also to be funny sometimes.
Can I ask a final question, please?
See if you have time.
So how do you, when you go to an organization with, I don't know, disabled people or whatever, how do you approach them? I mean, how do you, how do you say?
I go with Craig's book, my book, because I wrote a book as well. I bring the two books, and then I show you videos from quadprops.net, and I'm quite clear about, I mean, what I explain who we are, what we do.
Okay.
I think it's really effective to say it's a worldwide methodology that is from Europe, South America, because until they don't see you, they don't trust you. I remember the first, I mean, now in the center where I'm working, I do 13 hours per week. That's the maximum that I want to do with this job. When I came for the first time, I say, no, because we do life skills, we use object, we use common object. And she says, no, that's a mess. I don't want to see my guys playing with the cups and forks. No, that's messed things up. No, just do normal circus workshops. After years now, I have 13 hours, I have the company, they pay me the study, okay, but you have to step in, maybe go for free. I can give you an advice. If you really want to take a job, say, okay, I will come the first 1-2 days for free. I just show you. You don't have to pay me.
Okay.
Then you will get their trust.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome back. Welcome back. I think that was our longest breakout rooms we've done so far, actually. Our conversation in the breakout room with Tim jumped around a lot. So I'm supposed to do a review or an overcap about it, but I can't even remember all the topics we talked about. Some of the basic challenges, I think Veronika asked even a personal question about what it's like, you know, when you transition from being an artist and a performer, you know, it's why we get into circus. We love to do it. And then some of us end up being more administrative or responsible for community development. You know, someone has to take that step. And we talked about how to keep passionate. I think the solution was to gamify everything you do. So Tim said, like, as he transitioned to be more of an administrator, community manager, finding the things he liked about juggling, and which was the organized chaos, and then applying that to running a circus school. What else? There's sharing network and things like that. It was a really fun conversation. You guys can watch the recording. Lapo, did you, or Sarah, do you want to mention anything about your group's conversation? How did it go?
Yes, here I am. Yes, we had some question about for going deeper in the one-to-one approach, and then we talk about how to measure the work in the work one-to-one. So quite a difficult question to answer in in few time. So we just fix some concepts, and then there was a question about the research and how can contact university and organization. So we told there are other countries in Europe that are better than Italy in this way. So the European network is really great in this direction. And then we talk about our circus energy, because we work one-to-one in a clinical field, but we really put our circus energy in the activity, and we don't want to lose this, but we want to bring us that with us forever. And how to approach the organization when you want to work for a new organization. That's some topics. Thank you to everyone.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, there's just, I think when you're developing these type of things, when you want to start new conversations, when you want to create new cultures, there's just so many problems that you need to find solutions for. And it's a lot to do for one person. Like if I had to solve every problem in circus by myself, I would never achieve what I have. But because there's so many people like Tim, who founded FedEc, Kevin, who's here, who helped found ICO, who created these models for my generation first, I'm now able to adapt and strengthen and experiment and apply different strategies as well. So I want to thank everyone who's here for participating. I'm pretty sure most of the people who are here right now have been here for every episode. So congratulations if you have. I think we've created something, we've produced something together really valuable for the community, and we now have this playlist. You can check out the Hungarian Juggling Association YouTube channel, where they also have recordings of other playlists for other symposiums we've done, where you can meet and learn about other people doing these things. The goal is to bring us together, to make us aware of who we are, and to create conversations. So thank you, everyone. Veronika, if you want to say something to close out.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to thank you for these 5 episodes, because you were the main person to coordinate and put together the program. So thank you for being always with us, behind us, between us, and among us, and with us.
Okay, we're all done. Thank you, everyone, so much. We'll keep you informed. I hope you enjoyed your time. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.